All right, so I have Mr. Joe Hollier here, like one of the co-founders from Light. Welcome,
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
man. It's awesome to have you on board. I've been meaning to contact you guys for years, as I've been interested in these minimalist phones for such a long time. In fact, I had an idea years ago that I presented to my university lecturer. This was back in 2015. And I said, what if someone came up with a phone that wasn't a smartphone? It had all these basic features. And he laughed at me because I wanted to create something like that. And I thought, okay, I respect him. I'm not going to go down that route. And then I saw you guys develop the light phone. I'm like, yes, prayers have been answered. I didn't have a good business case for him, but what you guys have created, what I found was it's not just a piece of technology, right? It's something a lot higher than that. And I was reading your backstory as well, how you met up with your co-founder Kaiwei Tang at a Google Accelerator program, and that you're there to develop apps. Can you tell me how did it get from developing apps to creating the light phone?
Yeah. So the program that you're talking about was really open-ended. So I think as a kind of artist designer, I joined with very little expectations other than a curiosity for, what I might learn about, and whether that became some sort of tech business or just something I took back with me into my, personal practice. And I think quite quickly in the program, we met so many different founders or investors and kind of just thought leaders in the space. And something we saw happening again and again was the same kind of business model based around the attention economy. And that wasn't even really a term that was coined at the time, but there was this business model, which was, let's make a smartphone app, let's make it free so you can scale it to so many users. And as long as it's sticky, or users are spending hours a day, there's a lot of ways that they can turn that into valuable data collection, advertising channels, and that was kind of the golden rule, it almost felt. And I think Kaiway and I sort of looked at the larger landscape, and we're like, if every single company is just has this one goal of more of our time, and it's kind of obvious now, but we weren't even really the customer. It was these advertisers that wanted the data and whatnot. We were really the product. And we just felt, as kind of human-centered designers, that could never lead to aligning with our quality of life as users. The things that actually would make our lives happier. And we kind of said, could being any more connected, if I were to think of the best new smartphone app, is that actually what people want? Or in doing interviews, we realized people wanted to live in a car and travel the world, and they had these fantasies of these sort of exotic other lives of disconnectedness. And we said, I think there's something in that, and that maybe there's a way we can find some sort of middle ground or balance, or encourage people to maybe not become a full Luddite and go off the grid, but maybe there's a way to take a little bit more control back.
Yeah, I really love that because, I mean, you look at it now, there's so many documentaries and there's a lot of shows out there about distractions and smartphones where, you guys got in there way earlier than when all these came out. So when did you realize that the world had to change? You know, um,
So yeah, this was all happening in 2014 was when Kai and I met, and then we went through about like an 8-month process of kind of interviewing, maybe giving people flip phones. We did a little bit of testing with that, and I think it was May of 2015 when we really felt like we want to present this idea in the form of crowdfunding in our case to the world, and that we felt enough conviction that this is something we really believe the world needs. And I don't think we ever thought that everyone would switch to a light phone, but that there was a billion phone users, and yet only really one phone option, or at least it was definitely moving in that direction. So it was definitely ahead of its time in some ways, in the sense that we saw a lot of polarizing reaction. Some people immediately felt what we were saying, were like, oh, wow, email is ruining my family life. I would love this phone. But other people were like, the smartphone's invaluable to me. I use it for everything. And I think they were still really, kind of loving all of the features that they were used to with their smartphone. And from 2014 through the years, we've seen the conversation change. And we've even had so many customers say, at first when I saw it, I thought this is a really dumb idea, but now 3 years later, every time I'm on my phone for too long, I think about your phone. So in a way, it's kind of like uh, we've been able to impact people who haven't even used our phone, which I think is really cool as an artist.
Yeah, yeah. And one of the big things that I took out of it as well, it's not just a piece of technology, it's a way of life. Because I look at, these iPhones. I mean, I've got an iPhone now as well. And, you can easily get into another app, right? Whereas a light phone, yeah, I'm going to call someone or I'm going to play that podcast. So you're actually using a tool rather than being distracted. And I mean, I do get distracted on it because it's really nice, and that's one of the things I wanted to mention about it because I look at those so-called dumb phones and they are really ugly. Where did you come up with the design cues for this? Because I know you've got that design background as well, and not just for the phone, but I really love the website and the photographs and even some of the videos that was shot for light. It's just I love it. So can you tell me how that came about? Because it really is not just a technology, but you made it look nice as well.
Well, I think you really nailed it when you said it is a lifestyle thing. I think we've always seen the light phone as an experience initially, and we kind of from the beginning branded that experience as going light, as a way to, show that unlike every other piece of technology that has a spec list of like, we have all these features, Bluetooth, this, that, like that was almost irrelevant to the value of the light phone because the whole value proposition that we had was the less you use your phone, the happier and the more present you might be. And that putting that same time into other, whatever that might mean for you individually, aspects of your life might bring you a more meaningful happiness. And so, we really wanted to avoid talking about the object itself and actually went as far as saying it's a phone designed to be used as little as possible. And so, in all of our design decisions, we kind of went back to that philosophy. If we are to add a new feature, an alarm, directions, a music player, we want to do so with intentionality so that people aren't just mindlessly reaching for it. And I think in terms of the design of the phone, we wanted to take the best aspects of technology. I don't think we're anti-tech. There's a lot of great things that technology have afforded us, and I think it'd be silly to just throw out everything because a couple of these things like social media or infinite news and internet browsers are kind of using our vulnerabilities against us. And so we wanted to create a premium minimal phone is kind of how we think of the light phone. We didn't want it to feel like you were making a sort of sacrifice, that you could still have the sophistication of UX that has come a long way from flip phone times, but without the kind of other aspects of a smartphone that make it just so incredibly addictive. And we wanted it to be something that people would be proud to buy and use. And yeah, I think as designers ourselves, we wanted it something that we wanted to use ourselves.
Yeah, I can see it having an impact, definitely going against some people's lifestyle as well and the way they think, because, as we said, these are tools. And if someone's changed their lifestyle around waking up and checking their emails and scrolling through social media throughout their whole day, now something like this goes against their way of life, right? Some people are cool with that, some people are not. So and that's what I've found. Like my wife's total opposite of me. She, I had this, I'm beside the bed charging, and she's like, "Why have you got that crappy phone?" I'm like, it goes against everything. Her looking at dog videos on Instagram and stuff, which I've got nothing against, but it's a lifestyle you're up against. So have you found? I mean, the success has been great, but have you found people saying, "Look, why don't you include this? Why don't you include that feature, that feature, that feature?" And I'm thinking, hang on, because I've seen a few videos and people are wanting all these features, but they're not realizing, hang on, this phone like you said, is meant to be used less. And it's not a smartphone per se. It is smart, but not in that way. So how do you get around that in terms of what feature to include and what not to include, most importantly?
Yeah, I mean, it's been super interesting, that exact kind of what to include and what not to include. And we find it interesting both looking at our own opinions of it as well as what everyone else has to say. I think we have kind of drawn a couple of what we call like red lines, which are things that the phone will never have. And part of that is like by making it such a small phone with this very limited black and white e-ink screen that would never be good at scrolling lots of images or media or anything like that. It's inherently not going to be a smartphone. Even if you were to install whatever social media on here, it wouldn't be nearly as addictive. So I think from the hardware side, we've designed it to help with that. But then on the software, by designing all of the tools and the OS ourselves, we're able to not only maintain user privacy across all of these things that people so often get free products at the cost of all of their location data or something else, but also we were able to make these things intentional and decide what and will and won't have. And it will never have an internet browser, social media, email, or any other anxiety inducing infinite feed is really how we like to describe it. And things like email are get heated in terms of conversations because some users consider that a utility, which many of our work lives revolve around email. But we just felt that email was something that we find ourselves checking and checking again, and that it often brings a lot of anxieties from work, and that emailing on even a full-fledged smartphone that isn't a tiny little black and white screen is a kind of subpar experience, and that it would be a much worse experience on a little phone like the light phone. So that's one that we also feel just philosophically feels off. And when users are able to commit to that, they're like, wow, that's one of my favorite aspects, is that now email, I check it 3 specific times a day on my computer or just during these hours. And I think that really does a lot for people's sort of mental clarity. But in terms of like users making that transition, I think the users that are able to go light successfully see a full lifestyle change. And obviously, the light phone is just the catalyst. A lot of that is self-will and preservation, and really taking the initiative to redirect all that time and energy into healthier outlets. But on the other side, we do see a lot of users that try the light phone and find it just too hard of a switch, that maybe aren't ready to fully commit to the kind of lifestyle change that the light phone really encourages. And that's unfortunate, but I kind of see it like a gym membership or a diet or any of these other things. Learning a new language, it's not necessarily easy to go so simple, but if you can get there, simple might be a better lifestyle for some. And of course, it's not for everyone. Some careers, the idea of not having email maybe is impossible on their phone. But I do think sometimes a lot of these, like, if only it had, if only it had, if only it had, tend to be more excuses, and we probably put more weight on them than it actually justifies. And a few examples of that are like the light phone. We just released directions on it maybe like a year ago. So for 2 years, we had users using the phone without directions, and many of them told us that they thought that was going to be a deal breaker, that they would get lost. And actually, what happened was they realized, like, wow, it's my brain's starting to connect dots, and I'm able to navigate my city without my GPS every time, and it actually became empowering. I mean, we did end up rolling out that feature because I think it adds a peace of mind for people. So that they're not frantically panicking that they're lost. But more and more users are like, I don't even use the directions. It's, if anything, I ask the stranger at the gas station, where do I go? And so it's been really cool to see how people's expectations of, if only it had this, or I need this, and then to not have that and see that you're able to survive is actually empowering.
Absolutely. I'm glad you've answered that question because I've had it in my head. It's like I'm seeing so many people saying, well, what if it includes Spotify? What if this and that and that? I'm like, hang on, hang on, hang on. It's a lifestyle, not a feature. It's because they see it as a technology that has, and they're connecting it to smartphones. So that have these features. So that's why I'm, love having this chat, because hopefully it brings that attention to people that it's not just about the technology, it's about the lifestyle, that mindful activity of checking your phone a few times, but making sure when you do check it, you're at the right mental space and so on. I've recently left social media and I haven't told anyone really, and only one person noticed. So I got that straight away saying, "What happened? You're not on whatever." They were probably trying to tag me, but apart from that, nothing really happens. And and I've been using the light phone obviously for a few weeks now, and I realized that because look, I'm not a massive user of social media. In fact, I'm one of those people that have to force myself to use social media. That's how bad I was. So I had to create videos for Instagram or YouTube and so on. So when I left, it was easy for me. But what I also noticed being on the light phone all the time is that I still um, had that anxiety of, oh, I want to reach for my phone or I need to check something on Google. So there was always a little distraction. It wasn't necessarily email or social media. There was something else in there. Like I need to order from Uber Eats or I need to do this and this. Well, guess what? You can do that on the computer as well. Everything that I had on the phone was doable on computer and sometimes even more. So I'm like, well, everything's there for us. We don't need to have all these features on our phones, like you said, with the directions. Maybe it's easier asking for the time for someone or going into that, station and saying, look, where's the directions to whatever. So I found because of the work that I do in, focus and, memory, we found that in order to improve your memory, the less things you have in your mind, then the greater focus you have, and hence you improve that memory. So when I look at the light phone, that's what it is. You've got less things on there, but the things that you're able to do is not going to distract you from your everyday life. So I've been using the phone, but I've also been reading a lot more. I've also been phoning friends. I mean, it's a phone, right? So you phone up friends as well. And I came across one of your videos, which was so inspiring, that you took the light phone to a school in Buxton and it was adopted by teachers and students. So, and for people watching this, go and watch that video. It's amazing. I might even put a link to it if that's okay.
Oh,
Um,
we love it. Yeah.
so what
That
was the
story
big,
is really humbling.
yeah, what was the massive, I mean, I won't say, what was the big takeaway from that experiment of having students and teachers use a light phone?
I mean, I think it was really interesting because a lot of our users tend to be adults who are sort of subscribing to it on their own will. Like I realized this problem, I want a light phone. And this was the situation where, 70 students were basically being told you can't have a smartphone. And so they were going into it with a lot of woes and, this stinks. Like, why is this happening to me? This is going to be the worst ever. And I think it was really cool to see is like even though a lot of the students like hated the light phone, maybe because it represented that lack of freedom or it doesn't have anything, and they would just, some of them would just say like, I just don't even take my light phone out of my dorm room, I just go out on campus. And you're like, great, that's almost even better. And I think even the ones that were the most reluctant about the light phone, when they talk about this school year versus last school year, or when you talk to the teachers who I think have a more even objective opinion, it seems like a pretty night and day difference. And even they're able to admit like, yeah, meal times are more fun. I made friends outside of, like, I think they used to get really clicky. Like, I mean, it's been a while since I've been in high school, but I imagine, people kind of, and I think the smartphones exaggerated that. So by, no one having a phone, people are less, shields down, or more shields down and approachable. And so students were cross mingling more, making more friends that way. And so I think what I loved was that the phone was really almost irrelevant in the equation. They could have had pet rocks as a phone or something, and it would have had the same effect. But obviously, they do need to have minimal call and text capabilities. So it seems to be working quite well. But it's fun to hear, like, they hate the phone, but you're actually seeing such great positive results. And I suspect a lot of them will go back to their smartphones, it seems, after this high school. But I kind of can't help but feel like maybe in 2 or 3 years, when they're, overwhelmed in college or in adult life, they'll look back at that time without their phone at Buxton and be like, wow, maybe there is something to that. You know.
Yeah, as I said, it's something inspiring to me because I also see the young generation watching something like that and think, you know what, maybe I can try it. I mean, I know it's a very small percentage probably, but it's something that I know the younger generation do want. They want greater focus. They want to study with greater efficiency. And I work with a lot of students and adults, and they come to me with the same problems. I procrastinate a lot. I can't manage my time. As soon as we get rid of the phone problem, and I do that through several techniques, and you use the Pomodoro technique, 1 minute rule, all those sort
Yeah,
of
of
things,
course.
and getting to bed early. Parents can tell them that stuff, they won't do it, but as soon as I say it, they do it. So which is pretty awesome. But yeah, as soon as their phone time reduces, now they've got that focus as well. So I think it's what you said. It's not so much about the phone, it's what the phone gives you without it being there, even. So it's like a superpower, which is, that's why I really love that case study. Has there been any more sort of adoptions, or have you gone to workplaces maybe, or have you done any other experiments with the light phone?
Not nearly at that scale, but fortunately, and it was the goal of the Buxton as a kind of, we called it a case study or an experiment. I mean, we weren't really sure if it was going to work out, us or the administrators at the school, but we've had interest from about a dozen other schools reaching out, and a few workplaces as well. I'd be really curious how it would fit into a kind of more workplace scenario.
Yeah,
Um,
that
so
would
we're
be,
definitely open ears if
yeah.
anyone out there
That will
is
be very
curious.
interesting. So if you're watching this and you want to trial it at your workplace, get in touch with Joe, or even me, and we'll put you on the right path because, not all workplaces use smartphones as well. So there could be a particular workplace saying, you know what, we're trying to motivate our employees. We're trying to get them to work at their very best. We're trying to, improve the quality of our product, blah, 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 because it's not just about the technology. It's about the I guess the brains and the heart behind it. What is it trying to achieve? And some businesses looking at this will go, you know what? This is how I'm going to create more time, because there's people out there saying always busy, busy, busy. And yeah, those people, they're busy because they're making themselves busy. So you can always get rid of that busyness. And yeah, so that's why if you're watching this now and you really need that inspiration, why not see how you go. One final sort of question for you before I let you go. Thanks again for your time. This has been
Oh, my
awesome chat.
pleasure. It's many questions.
Yeah. So what's next for Light Phone? I'm pretty sure that it's not one of those phones where you're going to release every single year, because I don't think it's that kind of phone from what I see. What do you see for the next 5 years for Light Phone?
Definitely. I mean, for the last 3 years since we started shipping the Light Phone 2, we've been heavily invested in the software side of it, which can start to sound ironic because we've been rolling out a slew of features, and it can start to feel like, well, when is this thing just going to turn into a full-fledged smartphone? But I think what our goal is kind of like that word peace of mind is this object works the best in getting its values proposition when it's invisible. But for some people to make the leap to the light phone or to fully integrate it confidently into their life, having certain things feature wise is really important, and not all of them are distractions. So we've been working hard to flesh out our upcoming calendar tool. That's going to be the next kind of optional tool users could add to the phone. And I think that's just going to make it even more easier for someone that has a very busy professional life or personal life with a lot of things going on, to use this phone and to not have to stress out about timing and syncing. And so our goal isn't to make it any more distracting or get people to use it more, but for people to feel more comfortable leaving behind the smartphone. And so on the software side, it's, fixing little bugs or optimizing aspects of the phone, just kind of making it better at doing the phone side of things. Like we agree that it's a phone. So let's make it the best phone we can. And then we're also considering potentially other models, not necessarily replacements of the Light Phone 2, but and talking with so many users, some people the size of the small phone, whether it's because they're a bigger person or they have eyesight issues. It's a really tiny phone. We get a lot of people saying, "Oh, my grandma would love that phone," and it's like probably not. It's probably way too small. So potentially a different version that would keep the same ethos but maybe address different needs, whether that's a more international version or a bigger battery, bigger screen. But I think in general, it's really just about whether it's hardware or software, making it so it's easier for people to try going light.
The Light
And
Phone
to
Pro
fit that
Max.
yeah, I mean, it sounds ironic to even think of it in these terms of growing, but I do think, having talked to enough users, it's like there are so many different people, and to think that one phone, one set of features could fit all shoes, it's like not really possible.
Yeah, that's one thing. I mean, when I first received it, I thought, wow, this is smaller than I thought. Because, you see it on, just on the web and think, okay, this is, and you have a sort of an idea, but when it arrives, like, oh, wow, this is tiny. But it's still good enough. Like it's still sizable enough to put to your ear and make a phone call. So that's what I liked about it. It wasn't necessarily tiny, tiny. I mean, I've got really fat thumbs and it was really hard to type on. But then again, I make mistakes on the biggest iPhone there is. So that's just me.
Have
So
you found that it's gotten easier with time, the texting?
I try not to have long conversations
Yeah.
with people, and if it does get too long, it's like just pick up the phone because I can't type for that long. And but it's look, it's been great. I've got no complaints about it, to be honest. Like if there's any features or anything like that, it's I understand the reason behind it now. Whereas before, if I didn't understand the reason, it's like, why hasn't this got that? Why hasn't this got that? And it'll just be comparing to a smartphone. So understanding the bigger picture really gets you to appreciate the phone more. So yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, in terms of people's lifestyles changes, texting is a huge one we hear about. It really changes how people text. Maybe it's on my way, be there 15 minutes. Those things still make sense as text, but people aren't arguing with a spouse or having long work conversations over text messages anymore.
Yeah. It's
And I think that's
education.
great. I love
Yeah.
calling my friends. It freaked some of them out at first that I just kept calling them. They'd say, "Hey, what's up?" And instead of texting back, I'm like, "What's up?"
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think it's about education as well. It's like why keep texting someone if you can just ring it and say, "Oh, hi, I love you too," or can we meet next week at such and such place? So much easier than texting up and down, up. And that's what we're used to. That's a lifestyle of texting back and forth and on the keyboard and our phones. But if we go back to the human side, it gets more engaging. And I used to have that anxiety of speaking to people on the phone. So I'd always text and type. But now it's like I'm looking forward to having these conversations because now they're a bit more personal. And you get to, really speak to the people that you haven't spoken to before and build these relationships. So, again, one of the other side benefits of having not just the light phone, but that lifestyle, so to speak. Yeah. All right,
Totally. And
Joe.
like that lifestyle is possible with a flip phone or other phones, but we just tried to brand it all with our videos and our messaging and the design of the phone to
Yeah.
hopefully appeal.
Absolutely. And it is possible. Like with my iPhone, I've got no email, no social media, nothing. But I still get on Safari. I'm like, bloody hell,
Yeah.
that thing is distracting me a lot. So yeah, I can disable it, but it's so easy to re-enable as well. So whereas a light phone, you can't, it's just the phone's there. You're either going to text or you're going to call. But the one feature I do love before I let you go, this was awesome because the website is pretty cool when you log in and you can add those extra, in the toolbox and the notes section, because I type a lot of notes and I can type the notes on the website, on the
Oh yeah,
dashboard, and then it syncs to my phone. I'm like, that's cool. I don't have to keep typing on my phone. I can just go to the dashboard, type a whole heap of notes, and now that I've got that on my phone, so I'm like, that's really cool.
I agree. That's one of my favorite features, selfishly as well. Um, One sort of point to what you said about the smartphone that I found really interesting. We did do some tests where we took all social media off people's smartphones. And for like 2 days, these users, their screen time would be like significantly down, like 4 hours down to 30 minutes. But then you realize, oh wait, now they're just looking up things on Wikipedia or shopping on this app. It's the iPhone was just something that people, when you sit down on your couch at the end of the day, wanted to resort into it. And it was almost like anything it could offer.
Yeah.
And where the light phone, we've had people say, like, we unboxed it. It was so fun to look at and set up. And then it was like, now what? Because it doesn't give you much. You're like, I already texted the three people I talked to say, hey, I got a new phone. It's like,
Yeah. Now what?
and
Go
at that
live
point,
life.
it's like, and I think that now what point is what kind of makes or breaks the experience for people. If people are able to embrace it, or if they find themselves scurrying back to the smartphone.
Yeah,
And for some people,
absolutely.
it's been multiple tries. They tried the light phone, went back, tried it again, and it was just took a few tries before it really
Mm.
stuck.
In fact, that's what I did. Actually, I tried the light phone for one full day. Then I went back to iPhone for a few days, and I went back to light phone for a few days. And I found myself wanting to go back to the light phone from my iPhone. It was quite bizarre because I don't know, I just really liked it. And now I can go without the iPhone now. I mean, I'm happy with it because it's suiting my lifestyle. Obviously, other people, like you said, it's not going to suit everyone, but for the benefits that it gives, maybe people watching, they might want to try it or get on the website. I mean, it's fantastic. And yeah, I really wish you guys all the best with the product and in the future as well.
Thank you so much. That means a lot.
Yeah, Joe. All right. Well, thanks for speaking to us. Yeah, do you have any final comments for everyone out there and watching?
I mean, not so much. I guess maybe one last thought is that even if you buy this phone or not, I'd encourage people to try an afternoon without their phone, just simply leaving the smartphone off in the other room or going for a stroll and leaving it at home completely. And I mean, you'll have that peace of mind of what if there's an emergency, but I'm sure most places someone is in screaming distance with a smartphone somewhere, at least in New York. But I think, uh, it's such a simple way to try going light for free and without having to commit to the full lifestyle switch to just maybe trying doing that for an afternoon or a few afternoons a week or a whole weekend. And I think that eases people into a transition much easier. But no, that's
Yeah.
it.
I really love that idea. That's an awesome message. So thank you so much. I'll leave you to it. Really appreciate your time, and hopefully we can meet again in the future.
Of course, thank you.